When people of multiple generations hear this song, they can only think of one thing: Pittsburgh's beloved own Fred Rogers. Minister, composer, performer, icon of children's television, and everybody's favorite neighbor. What many don't think about are the incredible musical performances that are so important to Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, and the man responsible for them, another beloved Pittsburgher, Johnny Costa. Johnny Costa was born in Arnold, Pennsylvania in 1922 and was originally an accordion player. As Johnny tells it,
my cousin had an accordion and he was taking lessons and I was fascinated with that. And I thought, well, I ought to have one of those, don't you think? So my dad eventually, in order to buy me one, had to sell his house. And so I played an accordion quite good. I played all the overtures and things like that. I played the accordion until I was about 13 or 14. And then it was so heavy, my dad would have to carry it to all the school programs and things like that. And I didn't want my dad coming in his work clothes when I was being aware of girls. So I thought, gee, I see all these pianos around here. I think I ought to play the piano. You don't have to carry anything. And I had a high school teacher that says you should play the piano. At that time, he also discovered that I had perfect pitch. And that was wonderful. So anyway, I eventually got to play the piano, and I studied with a wonderful teacher called Martin Miesler, who taught Oscar Levant. And he came into our town once a week, and I studied with him, got some formal training.
Influenced by classical composers Bach and Chopin, and by jazz pianists Art Tatum and Fats Waller, Johnny began to develop his own style. He became a successful working musician. Then came World War II.
At which time they decided that I wouldn't be a musician, so they gave me a gun and put me in the 90th Division, and I wound up landing 6 hours after H hour on D-Day in Normandy, France.
After serving in the Army during World War II, he attended Carnegie Tech, now Carnegie Mellon University. The day after graduation, with a degree in music, Johnny began his career in radio as music director at KDKA. In the 1950s, Johnny wrote and performed for TV shows like Funsville and Meet Your Neighbor. He appeared on The Tonight Show with Steve Allen, toured the country with his own trio, and for a short while was music director on The Mike Douglas Show. At the end of the 50s, he chose to return to Pittsburgh. Let's listen to a little more of what Johnny Costa does with the pop tune Tea for Two. Johnny's collaboration with Fred Rogers began when Fred offered him $5,000 to arrange, conduct, and play music for 100 episodes of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. This collaboration would last for 31 years. Bradford Marsalis said of the program that it was the best jazz show on the air anywhere.
You know, when I sat down to do the very first program, when Fred wrote the song, and I had to have an intro, and I had remembered that, somehow being in Oakland and right near where I went to college at Carnegie, and I had worked on a Beethoven a sonata, and the trio went something like this. And so I thought, hey, that might make a nice intro for the program. So I did that. Instead of 3-part harmony, I did it in 4s, and did, that'd be a nice intro for the song. And so on, and then he would sing, so that stayed.
In 1990, after a break of more than 30 years, Johnny began recording again for Chiaroscuro Records. These projects continued until his death in 1996. Let's listen to Johnny's interpretation of George Gershwin's Embraceable You.
Along the way, I got to meet wonderful people like Art Tatum, and I just recently have been told that he came into Pittsburgh one time to play, and Lenny Lippman, a newspaperman, wanted me to meet him for the first time. Those days I really liked to imitate him. So I was playing in the background, and as he walked in, he heard the music, and he said to Lenny, he says, "Oh good, you've got my record on." I realized that I would have to not be a copy of anybody, even though I could do it quite well. And people would say, well, you got to have your own style. You got to be different. And I didn't realize that that was inherent. I mean, it was there, but it didn't come out until after it was mixed with some training from the wonderful Bach and Beethoven and people like that, and particularly Chopin. I figured if I'm going to steal, I'm going to steal from the very top. Then my job in Pittsburgh was musical director of KDK Television, which was the first radio station, I think, in the world. And I was musical director of that station for 15 years. And after that, these engagements just seemed to follow one another. I met a man called Fred Rogers, and he had a television program for children. And I thought, oh, I don't think I want to play children's music. I'd like to do the program, but I think I need to play music as I would play it for anybody. And I was so pleased that children have good ears, have a good sense of rhythm, and they took to it. They liked it. I was able to do the program in a jazz way, satisfying myself, and so it was a happy association.
Pittsburgh is fortunate that Johnny Costa also chose to be our neighbor.